just because somebody has fiduciary in their description doesn't necessarily mean that every fiduciary is going to do it the same way, is what I should say on that, right? So, and it doesn't make them bad. We don't like it. Our clients value transparency.
Welcome to Upticks with Jake Falcon, founder and CEO of Falcon Wealth Advisors. In this podcast, we help high net worth individuals overcome financial complexities. We do this by enhancing financial literacy and discussing topics in a language free from industry jargon. Join us as we help explain exactly what having a solid financial plan means, as Jake draws from years of experience in helping hundreds of individuals get financially organized and focused on their goals. We hope you find Upticks educational, entertaining, and shareable. Now, on to the show.
Welcome back to Upticks with Jake and Cory. Cory, welcome back to the show.
Jake, thank you for having me back.
All right, Cory, I know I get a lot of crap for talking about golf, but I went on a golf trip. I got to tell you about it.
Please.
I want to hear what's new in your life, of course, but I want to tell you about it. I bought this round of golf in a charity auction deal. It's kind of an exclusive private deal. So I went down to Arkansas. I went to Fayetteville. You ever been to Fayetteville?
I've never been.
Man, for your daughter, when she's getting ready to go to college, if she's going to go to college, I would highly recommend you tour the University of Arkansas. Very cool. We stayed right there by like the Greek housing. It's awesome. Very cool.
Did it take you back to your college days, staying by the fraternity house? Good.
It did. The kids look really young. Like we went walking around, and it was like the first or second week of school, so it was like humming, and just everybody looked so young.
Yeah.
But you know,
I feel how they thought you looked.
I feel the same age.
Maybe you don't look it.
I think I look pretty similar to the way I look. Maybe I don't. I feel like I look the same as one of my 20s. I don't know.
I'm not giving you a hard time. I'm just saying.
No.
I know what you mean.
I am older than I was in college, so that's true. That's fact. Anyways, I played the Blessings, which is University of Arkansas's golf club. Very difficult, very fun, very pretty course. One guy owns it, the Tyson Chicken guy. We saw John Daly Jr. out there in the distance working on his short game. Very cool. Then I went down to Little Rock and played a Lotion, which is a super private exclusive. Again, one guy owns this place. Quick fun fact about this place, Cory, that I loved. You could drive the golf cart all the way up to the green, like literally almost on the green. You could drive the cart anywhere. And what's weird is the course was immaculate condition. Better than any course condition in Kansas City.
Is that one, though, where you can't take photos of it?
Yeah, well, you could. They just don't want you posting them on social media, which I thought was kind of cool, too. And there's no tee markers. So you just go, there's tee boxes, but you just tee up wherever you want. I thought that was super cool also. So very cool. And the caddy was amazing. The caddy was phenomenal. I mean,
How we didn't have rounds.
I shot 76 there.
That's pretty good.
Which is pretty good. I shot even par on the back nine. I had 3 birdies. Again, the caddy was a big help. Played pretty well. I hit the ball great. So I had a good time, and I went down there with a couple of long-term friends. So we had it was a long road trip, but we had a great time. So anyways, that's what's new with me. What's new with you, Cory?
Got back on the tennis courts last week and this week, Jake. It's the first time in several months, and it's been great to get back out there.
Did you stretch and drink water? I don't want you getting hurt out there.
Both. All the above.
Good. You got to stretch and you got to drink water.
Father Time is caught up with me too, Jake. That's why I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do the whole, like in golf, right? It's the trunk to tee box, right? In tennis, it's like, I'm not going to go straight to the court and start playing. Not the way to do it. But it's been great to get back out there.
And you'll probably play better if you stretch and stay hydrated. So good for you. I'm glad you got out there. It's been kind of hot. So hopefully.
Yeah, ready for some cooler temperatures.
Yeah, hopefully you get some cooler temperatures and you stay out on that tennis court. All right, perfect. So before I dive into today's topics, Cory, I had a question yesterday from a client, and I'm not going to go over the specific headline, but I just want to continue to encourage our audience to be wary of headlines that spark fear in you, especially right now with, all of the macro events that are going on. We've got election coming up, all that stuff. If a headline says stock market set to crash 30%, or the IRS is going to start taxing your home or whatever, you have to understand that is designed to grab your attention. That's it. That's nothing else. It is not designed to educate you. It is designed to grab your attention so you click on that article so that news publication can sell ads and make more money. That's what it's for. It's to make money. And so I just want to continue to encourage our audience that if something sounds extreme or scary or too good to be true, to not believe it. And ultimately, you should check in with your financial or your wealth advisor, check in with your CPA, check in with your attorney. If you have a question about your financial plan, let us know at Falcon Wealth Advisors. We can tell you what the rules are, we can tell you what the facts are, and we can plan accordingly, but we're not going to sit here and spark fear into our clients. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, you're spot on, because that is exactly what those headlines are intended to do. And we have to remember that nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody has the clear vision of exactly what's going to play out in the future. But someone can write very convincingly as if they do know what's going to happen. And I think that's kind of the point here, Jake. And I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. I have to share this because I just saw this article that was published around these same things. It's not a scary headline, Jake, but there was an opinion article that was published in the Washington Post that I read this, and it was trying to explain to me why, or whoever's reading it, why Kamala Harris's husband is considered to be a modern day sex symbol. I just read that. I saw this headline, and I sure enough, I read the article. If I could go back and undo that, I probably wouldn't. But because I read through that, exactly that though, I read this headline, I read the article, and there was nothing of any substance or value that came from it.
Yeah.
It's all just intended to get me to click on it and read it. The same way that telling you, Jake, or me, or a client, or whomever, that the stock market's going to crash or taxes. It's all just designed for you to click on it.
You know what our audience should be doing? Clicking on Upticks.
That's right.
Let's watch and listen to that. Let's read that, because we're not going to sell you hyperbole. What's interesting, Cory, is we share headlines on our show. Right. A lot of our headlines aren't extreme. And if they are, it's extreme only to get the reader's attention to talk about the facts. So again, we're not trying to scare people on this show. And if you want to be scared, go watch a thriller or a horror movie. Don't read a news publication that's going to scare you. You should understand that shouldn't be used for that. You like the adrenaline rush of being scared, go watch Halloween. That's a scary. Go watch Friday the 13th. That'll scare you. But that'll work. Don't read the news. All right, good. And again, quick shout out to our audience. Thank you for all of our subscribers and our listeners. Cory, our subscriber count continues to grow. The whole point of Upticks, like we're getting at right now, is to enhance financial literacy. So please like and share our content. Give it a thumbs up, a 5-star review. We're doing this to help people. The show is not advice, but we just want to bring awareness to some of the topics, the latest topics in financial planning and investments. With that, Cory, take us away.
All right, Jake, our first headline: how to use biweekly mortgage payments to pay off your home loan ASAP.
Right. So this is essentially, Cory, making one more mortgage payment per year. So instead of paying your mortgage monthly, you go to your loan company, whoever is servicing your loan, and you set up automatic payments to happen twice a week. And the argument is like maybe when you get paid, right? So you split your mortgage in half. So if your mortgage is $4,000 a month, you pay $2,000 on the 1st, $2,000 on the 15th. You add all that up, you're basically paying one more payment per year. Now, me personally, this is not advice, but I don't like this unless your interest rate is higher than your investment rate, target rate of return. So again, if your mortgage is still 3 or 4% or 2%, or heck, even 6%, and your target rate of return is 7, 8, or 9, then paying off your house early doesn't really make mathematical sense. Now, it may make sense in your financial plan, but it might not make mathematical sense. So again, this doesn't apply to everybody. Like I said, it's not advice. Another point I wanted to make, Cory, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, is I also didn't realize that your mortgage company may charge you a fee to make bi-monthly payments. And in some cases, your payments don't go towards your principal, and instead they just hold it in escrow. So if you're going to make, the takeaway here is if you're going to make extra mortgage payments, I would certainly make sure that you're not paid any extra fees to do that, and make sure that it gets applied to your principal and they don't just sit on your money. What are your thoughts on this before we go to the next one?
I think you're spot on there. That's interesting, though, about the extra payment piece. And that's a good note for anybody who's watching or listening or considering that, because I know when I make my mortgage payment, I can make my minimum payment. I can pay extra principal. I can pay extra escrow, but I have that choice. It's interesting that sometimes it might get set up where it's not going to work that way for someone. And if they are going to make multiple payments, make sure it's going to the right place.
Yeah, and I actually found out, I was paying my mortgage like on the 1st when it's due. I found out I could wait all the way to the 15th and not pay any penalties or fees. So I delayed it as long as I could, actually. So my money was earning interest longer or whatever, that my money was in my possession longer than the mortgage companies. So it pays to do that. Because the great thing about a mortgage, Cory, too, is normally once you go through all that and get it set up, it's not something you need to revisit every month. Right. Like you can normally get it set up. Maybe you check in on it once a year or whatever, but like it's not something that you actively need to manage, but you do need to do some homework on the front end and make sure it's going on.
Let me ask you a question around the same lines, Jake, just because we're on this subject. I'm curious your opinion on this. What is your opinion for people, whether they are escrowing taxes and insurance versus just paying it annually?
I'm glad you asked, actually. I've got two opinions. So I think there's no right or wrong answer here. I think if you have a problem budgeting, if you like your financial organization to be automated, you have a problem with financial organization, you have a problem with discipline, maybe you're on a fixed income, those are all reasons I like having that rolled up into your payment. I think if you do have discipline, if your pay structure is more volatile, meaning you might get big commissions here or not, if you like playing an active role in your finances and in your bills, you don't automate things as often, then I would pay it separately. So again, different strokes for different folks. It really comes down to what makes sense for you and your family. You can also think of it, it's the same concept, Cory, when people overpay their taxes and they get a refund.
Yep.
When you do that, you're letting the mortgage company hold on to your taxes and insurance.
Yep.
Which is fine as long as you understand that's what you're choosing to do. As Rachel was joking, that's a choice. It's a choice you make, but you have to understand the choice. What about you? What are your thoughts?
How do you have that set up personally?
I pay it out of pocket. I do this for a living, right? So I play a very active role in my finances. I'm trying to think of something that I automate that maybe someone else doesn't automate. Like I don't mow my own yard. And some people would say, well, you're just giving money to somebody to run a lawnmower over your grass. You can do that. So why would you do that, right? So again, doesn't make either right or wrong. I play an active role in my finances because I do it for my clients. And my pay is a little bit more different. It's different than most people. And so, meaning that I get paid 4 times a year, just like you do. And so I like to be able to manage that more than have someone take more from me monthly. What do you do?
The opposite. Mine is set up, Jake, where it's escrowed, yes. And it is, the truth is it's set up that way because we bought our house, which is our first house, and it was 3 or 4 months after the pandemic started back in 2020. And it was just something that it just sort of got set up that way, Jake, and I didn't make too much of a fuss about it. What's interesting about it, though, is I, just like you, and I would acknowledge and recognize that maybe just because of the nature of what we do, we may be more of the exception in terms of how hands-on we are with our own finances. But I do think that I've backed into it and I'm like, you know what? The amount of money that I'm paying monthly that's getting withheld for that, if I were to undo that, pay it myself, how much interest would I really earn on it? Is it worth my time to get a hold of Chase Bank to try to, undo all of this and make sure it all gets done properly? I've just sort of left it. But the truth also is that now that interest rates are higher, though, I've reconsidered that more. It's a different, like if they can sit on the cash and earn 5% versus me, that does change the math around whether or not you escrow anything. When interest rates were very low a couple of years ago, probably made less of a difference. It's at least something that's more of a consideration now, in my opinion.
Yeah, good. And that makes good. And that's, again, I love that you do it differently than me because our audience should understand just because your coworker does things a certain way doesn't mean that's the way you should do them.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm right and you're wrong or vice versa, right?
No.
It's what works for you and what works for us.
Exactly. And really all it comes down to is our financial plan. If your financial plan works, doing what you're doing, it's all that matters.
Yep.
It's all that should matter. Good. All right, good. Let's go on to the next one here. Cory, put Rover in your estate plan. He'll be glad you did.
Yes, this one's a little off the wall, Jake, but interesting and different. So do you have a pet? Yes, Einstein, right? Is Einstein part of an estate plan?
No.
Okay, so that's what's interesting about this. They said that some people create an estate plan with an animal rescue organization that they are ultimately going to fund to care for their pets. But where this really gets interesting, Jake, is that arranging care for your favorite pet for a lot of people is as simple as just, asking a trusted family member or a friend. But ultimately, that is just a verbal agreement. And pets, though, this is interesting in terms of state to state. In the United States, a pet is viewed as personal property in the eyes of most states, not family. And there's actually now, Jake, something called a pet trust that exists. And a pet trust is like a legally binding trust for minor children, but without specific instructions for, it's like a legally bind. It's really just like a minor child, but it's a trust that's intended to fund the pet. So I just think that's really interesting. And I'm curious, Jake, have you ever had anybody ask you about funding care for their animals in their estate?
No. Have you?
No, I don't think so.
It's not a bad idea. I think you're paying an attorney a lot of money, though, just to say, hey, Cory and Cassie, if something happens to me and Rachel, will you guys take on Einstein?
Yeah. You have my verbal agreement, Jake, that we will.
And I got it logged. I got it recorded on Upticks.
That's right. This is live. It's out there. That's not quite live, but exactly. That is overall
not a bad idea.
I think if nothing else, one takeaway from this that I wasn't clear and obvious, but I think it's good to talk about, Jake, is that without specific instructions for a pet, whomever has a durable power of attorney or is the estate plan executor has the legal responsibility to take care of your property, including your pets.
Got it.
So
good to know. I'm glad you brought it up.
Two say.
What's that?
I don't know what Otis and Einstein think. I don't know their opinion on this one.
That'd be fine.
Yeah. Anyway, interesting thought.
Yeah, good one.
All right, Jake, how many credit cards should I have?
Did you read my notes on this?
Mm-mm.
Good. No?
No.
No. Good. Okay. So my first question is, how many credit cards do you have?
3.
And not what brands, but so like
2
I have
personal, 1 business.
2 personal, 1 business.
Mm-hmm.
Weird. So do I. And I don't think we talked about this before, have we?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So here's what the article said: the average person with a credit score. So this means that someone actually has credit, right? Because a kid might not have a credit rating, right? So someone with a credit score, the average has 3. And people with perfect credit have 6 on average. Okay, so here's some tips. Again, this is not advice, but it said in this article, it's in the Wall Street Journal, if you need to improve your score, it says to have 1. So again, think of your kids of like building credit. That said the idea is to have 1 card, using it over and over, building it, expanding it in there. So that's if someone needs to build it or improve it. If you don't want to play the points game, it says to have 2, right? Because then you're not worried about which card to use for groceries, which to use for gas, which to use it.
Yep.
If you don't want to mess around with the points game, it says that the 2 is ideal. If you want the points, but not a lot of hassle, it says 4 to 5. It even said in this article, Cory, department store cards were okay, according to the article again. But this is something I want to put out there. Make sure you pay those off, because historically, department stores like Macy's or Nordstrom have extremely high interest rate charges and fees. So you definitely want to make sure you pay those off every month. And if you're OCD, Cory, and you love points, 10 cards might be the way for you. And if you own a business like you and I do, 2 business cards is appropriate. We get away with 1. We've got 1. If they don't use it, we write a check, right?
Right.
So, but I thought this was interesting. I thought it was a good article. So again, the big takeaway is you want to pay off that bill. You don't want to you don't want to pay interest, especially now. Interest is pretty high on these credit cards.
Yes.
But I think, again, for safety reasons, that's probably why I have 2. I think we ran into one where one of mine wasn't accepted because of the type of card. So that's why we have 2 personally. And then we've got the 1 business, especially if we're traveling. If you're traveling abroad and someone doesn't take American Express, for example, you want to have a Visa or a MasterCard, a backup. Because that's the worst, right? Because you imagine being in Europe and you can't buy anything.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That'd be no good. So again, that's probably a reason maybe to have 2. I don't think I'm going to be the guy to have 6. I like to have a high credit score. I think my score is pretty good. but I don't know if I'm going to be the guy that's going to have 6. I'm definitely not going to have 10. I'm not going to sit there and have to spell this out to Rachel. All right, Rachel, you go to Whole Foods, you got to use this card. You go to Quick Trip,
Yep.
you got to use this card. You go to Nordstrom, you got to use this card. By the way, when we're booking flights, we're going to use this card. I can't be that. I'm not going to be that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Are you?
No, I'm not.
I would love to know.
I completely understand, though, people who are that way. I do.
I'd love to know.
Enough of them.
This is a good one for our audience. So again, email Luke at falconwealthadvisors.com. If you're that person that juggles credit cards, I want to know your system and how you do it, just because I would love to hear from someone that does. And generally speaking, if you've got a question or a topic that you would like us to discuss here live on Upticks, please email Luke at falconwealthadvisors.com, and Luke will make sure that your question gets addressed here live. That gets recorded on Upticks. All right, good. Cory, you got any other ideas on these credit cards?
It is interesting that if you're OCD and love points, at 10 credit cards is what they highlighted in the article. It just seems like a lot. The point I would make here, though, in all of this, and maybe it's an obvious one, is that you need to be mindful of what the expense to have each card, what the expense is each year, because some credit cards have much, much loftier fees than others. But either way, if you have 10 cards and each of them charges you $80 a year, you're paying $800 a year in fees to have those credit cards.
Yeah.
But your system and the points need to be enough to make it all work.
That's key, because I pay a high fee for my card, and my goal is to make sure that I'm making that money back in the form of points and perks or whatever, right? Because again, if you're not, so I don't mind, I pay a high fee for my credit card. I don't mind paying a high fee as long as I know I'm making more money back in the points. Because again, the credit card's happy to do that, because where they're making money is those people that don't pay their balances, right?
Yes. And that's true, that you're spot on. And that's why I wanted to say, Jake, around all of this, because we're talking about credit cards, is that, debt is a tool, not a lifestyle. You don't want to get into the business of spending money that you don't have.
Yes.
Which is why a lot of those department store cards, over the years, why they exist, Jake, and why they will charge 25 or 30% interest, because it's enticing people to spend money that maybe they don't have.
Right.
So use it as a tool.
It is a tool. Good. Perfect. All right, let's go on to the next one here. Cory, Social Security benefits projected raise keeps shrinking.
Yes. So the projected Social Security raise for 2025 notched lower in July of 2024 on cooler inflation data. So it basically notched lower down, excuse me, Jake, to 2.6%. The Social Security Administration will announce the actual cost of living adjustment in October, once the third quarter inflation data is actually complete. So in October is when we'll actually know what it's going to be. This is a projection. But a raise of 2.6%, Jake, would add an extra $49 a month to the average retirement check from Social Security, which is $1,870. So that's the average check that the Social Security Administration sends out.
Oh.
So but what's interesting about this is that while the cost of living adjustment is designed to help Social Security checks keep pace with inflation, there's an organization called the Senior Citizens League, Jake, that published a lot of research recently that said that Social Security benefits have lost 20% of their purchasing power since 2010, despite cost of living adjustments. And my point about that, though, and we've talked a lot about on the show, Jake, is that's the gripe that I have with inflation, is that people have to survive on price levels, not how quickly prices are going up or down. But I think, if nothing else, for people when they're thinking about next year, thinking about cash flow and thinking about budgeting, October is when we'll know exactly what that cost of living adjustment is going to look like. But the end of the year, as we approach the end of the year and the beginning of the next year, can always be a good time to revisit your financial plan, revisit your cash flow and your budget, make sure that things are working for you the way that they should be.
Yeah, and again, the key is to not have to count on it. Like, again, the cost of living adjustment hasn't kept up. And so we do build that into the plan that clients need to spend more every year because of inflation. But again, I don't want people so hung up on that October adjustment where their financial plan, I don't want them to get nervous about their plan failing or not. If your plan is going to fail because of $50 increase happening, you've got bigger problems that we need to address. And it's your spending.
Yep.
Right. So the Social Security raise should be good to help somewhat keep up. But if your plan is that dependent on that happening, we need to address some other concerns. And that's okay. And there's no shame in that.
That's
but again,
right.
I don't want people stressing about that adjustment. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, when we know what it is in October. It won't be enough for most people. Or it never is enough, probably. It never would be enough for most people. But again, I don't want our clients to have to depend on that for their plans to work, because that's a bad situation to be in. All right, good. All right. Cory, we got time for one more here.
All right, Jake, the fees on these funds will leave you high and dry.
This was a crazy article. Cory, have you heard of interval funds?
I have.
I don't know that I had. Maybe. I probably ignored it because, again, we don't use products.
Yep.
So interval funds for our audience are basically funds that only allow you to take your money out at certain intervals. And the first line of this article is investors will believe almost anything, which is sad. And so the way these interval funds are spinning it is that Cory, you give us your money, it's good that you can't get it whenever you need it. That's in your benefit to tie up your money with us. That's good for you. And it's like, what? What's crazy about these funds, Cory, also is that they're also oftentimes using leverage. So they're borrowing against the account to buy more investments. And they're doing a lot of private credit type, some obscure esoteric things. It's not typically, I don't think it's your normal stocks and bonds and these things. And maybe that's one, and they buy real estate, for example. So maybe that's not that's a reason why you can't get your money out whenever you want it. But the problem is the fees can be enormous. I mean, the fees can be 2, 3, 5, 7%, I think the article even quoted, a year. Fees.
So I can lock my money up for 7% a year and it's in my best interest?
Yes. And the argument is maybe the fund will make 12%, but you're paying them 7%, so you're only netting 5%. And so the argument is, why wouldn't you just go buy like a bond or something if you could get 5 somewhere and then you could sell it? So the key component here is, again, they don't offer daily liquidity. They pitch it as a good thing. Their fees can be applied to leverage, which is crazy. Point blank, Cory, they sound awful. This is not recommendation or advice, but they sound awful to me. And this is just yet another reason we steer clear of financial products for our clients. In fact, the only time we typically use a product, Cory, is if it's in a client's 401k, and that's the only option we have to manage their money. Otherwise, when they open an account and we're actually rolling over funds or adding to a brokerage, we're going to go buy stocks and bonds, and we're going to trade options for approved clients. We're not going to go roll up people's money and packaged products. It's stupid. It's so, I think I talked about this last week, and maybe I can talk about it every week, is that
I know
these funds are just another way for Wall Street to make money off the uneducated, uninformed, gullible retail investor. And again, the big purpose of this show is to enhance financial literacy, because we don't want our audience to be susceptible to these horrible, expensive products that they don't need in their IRA. Right? And so again,
well said.
You got to be vigilant. You got to educate yourself. You got to know what's going on. Lean on a fiduciary wealth advisor. If you don't work with us, that's fine. Work with a fiduciary. But again, if you're working with an advisor and they're using products, you need to challenge why they're doing that. Because again, I don't think any advisor should use products. In fact, if advisors using products, they shouldn't be charging you a percentage fee. They could charge you an hourly rate. I think I talked about this the other day. I don't know where I was.
That's right.
Maybe I was putting something out there. But like, again, if an advisor is going to use products, they should just charge you $50 an hour for their time, and that's it. But they shouldn't be charging you to manage your money, because they are not managing your money. Somebody else is. Anyways.
So I have to give a quick shout out, Jake, to our investment management team here at Falcon Wealth Advisors. I have a client and a friend that we brought on board at Falcon Wealth Advisors about 3 years ago, and they owned one of these interval funds with their prior firm and prior advisor. And our investment management team, each and every quarter for the last 3 years now, has gone in to evaluate how much of this can we sell? Does it make sense for us to do that? And I think it's nominal fractional amounts now, Jake, that they're dealing with. But the reality is you can only redeem so much every quarter.
So stupid.
So that, yet again, another investment product, Jake, that we have been busy working to unwind, something that someone got sold somewhere along the way that they didn't need.
And by the way, there's no shame in it. Like, I don't want people to be embarrassed.
No,
it's not their fault. And again, that's because they don't know. Just like,
correct.
If I go to my mechanic, Cory, and they tell me I need a new battery.
Did they used to always tell you that you needed brakes?
Yeah, every other time I needed brakes, and it's like, I'm always skeptical. I don't really trust always, But in the end, I usually get the breaks.
Yeah,
I don't know. And so it's like, I get it. Now, it's up to me to educate myself and start tracking. When was the last time I got breaks?
Right.
And I know I don't need breaks, but every 30, 50,000 miles, 25, 50. I got a bigger car, so maybe 25,000 miles. I don't know. But like, you don't need to be getting breaks every time you get your oil changed. I know that. Right. But again, that's on me. I've got to educate myself because they are going to try to put me in a product. And what makes me sick is when a fiduciary advisor can do this, though.
Yeah.
So again, the advisor could claim that this is in your best interest, believe it or not. And that's what's scary. And so just because somebody has fiduciary in their description doesn't necessarily mean that that every fiduciary is going to do it the same way, is what I should say on that. Right. So again, and it doesn't make them bad. We don't like it. Our clients value transparency. They value low cost. They value liquidity. They value all those things. And so that's what we provide in our investment strategy. Right? If you don't care about how much you pay and you don't care about liquidity, right? Then maybe that is for you. But again, it's not for our clients. And so
I just met with some clients yesterday, Jake, who they effectively summed up our meeting. They're like, look, we recognize that this is our money, but we hired you to make it your problem. Our money, your problem. But we know that you guys are there if we need anything. And we know that you have the part of what you're doing every day is this for clients. They're not trying to live an illusion around what it is that they want to try to do. Like, it's our money, but it's your problem. And that's why we hired you.
Yeah. And that's great. And the good news is we are offering transparency. We have control of the portfolio, education, all those things. So good. I know we went over time a little bit today, Cory, but it's very important that we continue to talk about this on the show. Because again, if you're a client and you understand that and you don't think your family or friends are getting that, please let us know. We've got 5 financial planners on our team, Cory. We have plenty of capacity to meet with new clients to help them understand what's going on in their portfolios. So good. So thank you again for joining me. Thank you all for tuning in. We hope you have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Upticks. Click the subscribe button to be notified when new episodes become available. Also, be sure to visit our website, falconwealthadvisors.com, and click the Contact Us button if you'd like to meet with Jake and his team.